Have you ever wondered why Ukraine is at war? People are exporting to Ukraine. Israel is at war. People are exporting to Israel. Countries are at war. People are shipping to those countries. Countries are having political, economic issues. People are shipping to those countries. Why? Their government gives them safety net and protection. Welcome to another session of sharing trade information on our YouTube channel. Now, I'll be starting a series, maybe 10, 11, 12-part series on export in Nigeria, growing export in Nigeria. And this is direct at government. So if you come across this video and you know someone in government, maybe you can share with them. And what I will be sharing is ideas I think we can pursue, and I'll be taking lead from different countries, what different countries are doing. You know, there are a lot of things we do as a country in Nigeria that shows we are not, it doesn't appear we're really very serious about growing on export. It doesn't appear. It does not mean we are not serious. The minister is serious. The NPC CEO is serious. A lot of people really want to, but I see, you know, when you see someone that really wants to do something, but at the end of the day, you look at what is being done and you realize that it looked like there is a knowledge gap as to what exactly is the problem. And I'm talking from a position where we've conducted surveys in the industry to be, among exporters, among bankers, to be able to know what the problems are and what needs to be done. So I'm coming from an informed position. These are not just my view. These are based on data collected from over 200 exporters. What Nigerian government must do to increase non-oil export volume. Now, in this first video, I'll focus on policies. You know, government is about policies. And the beauty is that government have tools to put in place policy that can grow non-oil export. As in, it's just going to skyrocket non-oil export. But the challenge is, for one reason or the other, those policies are not being put in place. So this is meant to guide the CEO of NEPC, the Nigerian Bank, the CBN, and of course, Minister of Trade, which were recently sworn in. Now, I'll look at about different areas of policy. So my focus in this session will be on different areas of policy. So I will now take each of those policies one by one in maybe in a 10, 15, 20 minutes video to talk about what I think should be done about it. I thought to write on this before. I started writing actually, but I felt, look, let me do a video. I eventually still post it on my website, on blog, but let me do a video to try to explain what I think we need to do. The first policy the government must pursue, which I'm not sure if this is a priority, is preparing the people. Okay, so let's start. What Nigerian government must do to grow non-oil export. And this can be applied by other countries. You can call it what a nation must do to grow non-oil export. What a nation must do to grow non-oil export. Number one policy, the first policy to pursue is preparing the people. Preparation. Preparing the people. I'll come back to talk about this. I will elaborate on it. But what should this cover? This should cover. Now, one of the major issues of export is the big-time exporters. The big-time exporters have reached their peak. So maybe in the last, if you check them in the last 3-4 years, they do, if he's doing 1 million, he's doing between 1,800,000, 1 million, 1.5, 1.2, everything is between 1 million to 1.5 million dollar shipment in a year. These are the biggest exporters in Nigeria are the ones that do millions of dollars. Most of the SME do thousands of dollars. Now, but where I'm going is this. Look at this. This company has reached its peak, and there are so many of them in that bracket. So, because of their capacity, unless they do a new investment, they won't be able to increase the volume of shipment because they reach their capacity. Meaning, if we now want to grow export, we need to bring in new exporters. US have about 300,000 businesses exporting. UK have about 150,000 businesses exporting. Different countries have thousands. Do you know the number of exporters in Nigeria? 1,000, 170, 200, 1,200 max. If I add an illegal one to it, 1,500. It's still nowhere compared to the volume of what Nigeria is capable of exporting. But how do we need to bring new people in. To bring them in, they need to be prepared. Now, so there must be a deliberate policy on preparing businesses for export. There must be a deliberate policy to prepare businesses for export. And I'll come and talk about this later on in another video. The second policy is on promotion. Promotion policy. Export promotion policy. The government must aggressively pursue export promotion policy. Export promotion policy. What is Nigeria able to export? Government should be the major seller of what Nigeria can export. Nigeria can export services, Nigeria can export tourism, Nigeria can export products. So is to check which country import this product the most. Go and promote, advertise in that country. You want this product? Think Nigeria. You want this product? Think Nigeria. That means this product Nigeria can produce in abundance. This country is one of the major countries that buys. We then go to that country and promote. Billboard, TV, radio, internet, whatever way we can promote based on research that we will reach the people we are trying to reach. I'm just mentioning all those options as an example. But there must be deliberate policy for export promotion. A deliberate policy, and I'll talk about what those policies cover later on in another video. But in this video, I'm just talking about all the policies area that government must pursue. Because look, if you just do one, just do two, just do three, if you don't do a holistic approach, we will not solve this problem. If we don't do a holistic approach, which is why I commend the effort made recently with the program done in Abuja, but what I didn't see in that program, or maybe by the time we get the communique, we'll be able to know if it covers all the areas, because what I didn't see is covering all the areas that I think it should be covered. But I'm hoping we'll be able to see the communique online and be able to check. But I mean, it's good if anybody can check this recommendation against what was done at that event and be able to fuse it together. Because what was done at that event were people talking about their direct pay in that personally, which is good. But what we have not looked at is holistic, other areas that are not affecting, that's not just affecting an individual, it's affecting the sector and even the industry as a whole. So, number one, policy on preparing exporters. Preparing new, growing new exporters, or preparing new exporters, getting new exporters in. Number two, promoting Nigerian export overseas. Number three, policy on export processes. Nigerian export processes is not very smooth. It has improved, and I must confess, I'm an exporter, but we are still having manual process. I'll talk about this later on in another video. I'll spend a video talking about each of these separate. But here, my focus is on processing. From beginning to the end is largely manual. We have the TRMS system that cover part of it, but a number of the documents are still manual. I still have to provide physical invoice, physical packing list. I still have to provide inspection act document, inspection document by all the agency of government. There are so many other documents involved in the process, which I will mention when I talk about paperwork that I'll talk about. It's still largely manual. And we need to improve on that process. It's still largely manual. The next one now is paperwork. Policy on paperwork. paperwork. Documentation required for export. Policy on paperwork. Why is policy on paperwork very important? The policy on paperwork is very important because it helps to streamline the documentation requirement for exportation out of Nigeria. The documentation requirement. And I will mention some of these documents in another video when I talk about this policy on the go. There's so many documents. You know, sometimes you think it's just invoice, packing list, bill of lading, invoice, packing list, certificate of origin, FGD, CCI, NXP. That's just about 7. We still have more than 10. And I will try to list this document where the day I'll be talking about paperwork. So we definitely need to do something about documentation. There must be a deliberate policy. Now, other processes, everything must be automated. Under paperwork, the number of documentation requirements must be reduced. Reduce. Barest minimum. Reduce. Then the next one, which I didn't see a lot at that event, is purchasing power. Purchasing power. By purchasing power, I mean funding. The funding, and I'll talk about what this funding will be. Like I said, I don't want to talk about them here. What is this funding supposed to be about? Funding. There must be a deliberate policy on funding export. Funding primary production. Funding processing. Funding shipment. Funding in a way that helps to scale. Remember, we want to grow on export. If this is not there, we are just a big joke. If we don't grow the purchasing power of the people, there are businesses that want to export and they can do a lot, but they don't have enough purchasing power. Other element, another purchasing power, we'll talk about it later on. So there must be a deliberate policy on purchasing power. A deliberate policy on purchasing power. Why? To grow the volume, making funds available to the people that want to do the business. And when I say purchasing power, I mean purchasing power going to real exporter, not political exporter. No political exporter. The next is proficiency. Policy on proficiency. There must be deliberate policy of government on increasing proficiency. You know, let me tell you how important this is. Recently, we did a training program for a big exporter, one of the top exporters in Nigeria, doing hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And it was a very elaborate. 6 days. It's supposed to be 6 days. We've done 4 days already, remaining 2 days at this time. But let me tell you what I discovered. They are doing a lot, but there's so many issues in their system that will have made them to be a lot better that were spotted during that conversation. And I love the conversation. There was so much back and forth in that conversation because they're already doing this thing. But you know, like, I've been doing this thing, but I'm doing it the wrong way. I've been making some error. I've been making some mistake, and they discover it. The good thing is that some of those issues have not crystallized. It has not become court cases. That if there is an issue that becomes court cases, they will have seen the error that they are making. Meaning, you can be exporting and doing very well, but there are still areas you are not very clear on or understand on. But because there have not been issues that crystallize in those areas, you have not had cause to have a litigation in those areas, you think you are fine. And you know this can also hinder how much our people can do in terms of volume. I'm talking about proficiency, being able to manage. In fact, I also know someone who would have done a lot better, is always having issue with cash. He's doing billions in turnover, but he's always having issue with cash. He's had issue with international financial management. Even though he's doing so well. And these are things that can affect businesses in future, such that it can even make the business to fold up. If something is not done about it, sometimes the risks they are taking, mitigating those risks, managing the business, supply chain management, different area of proficiency, a very, very important area. Then policy on pricing of Nigerian export. We need a policy that will make Nigerian export to be competitive. Competitive. Policy on proficiency, that's training, capacity building, deliberate policy on that, regularly being done, policy on pricing. How do we reduce the cost of export? What are the things that need to be done? And when I'm attacking each of these policies, I'm going to be talking about each of these one by one. What do we need to do as a nation? There must be policy to say, look, Nigerian export is becoming too expensive. We are not competitive. There must be policy that help to ensure the cost of export is reduced. Else, it's an international trade, by the way. Different countries are involved. If our own product is too expensive, why should they buy from us? When they have other options where they can buy from, why should they buy from us? There must be a deliberate policy to reduce the cost. Now, the next is, and that brings me to the next one, which has to do with production. There must be a deliberate policy to boost production for export. Not just ordinary production, not just, for example, Nexim is called Nexim because it's Nigerian Export-Import Bank. They don't finance import for consumption. They finance import of machinery and they finance export of commodity and finished goods. Because even though they are Nigerian export-import, they are geared towards export. So the import arm is to boost export. That's what I mean. Deliberate policy to boost production capacity of exporters so that they can export much more than they are doing right now. So someone is doing $100,000 in a year. Why can't he do $200,000? What's stopping him? There is, and I love this slogan by Nigerian Promotion Council CEO, double export. So that means last year we did 4.5 thereabout. This year we are doing 9. Next year we are doing 18. Then we are doing 36. That's fun. That means in 4 years we can actually move from 4 to 4.5 to 36. Year 1, 4.5. Year 2, 9. Year 3, 18. Year 4, 36 billion. What? No export. And I believe it's possible. I know we have what it takes. I've been in this sector for almost 2 decades. I know exactly that we can do it and we have what it takes. But what are we doing to boost production? Both raw material and finished goods. There must be a deliberate policy to attack production for the purpose of export. If we don't attack production for export, then what do we want to export? If we don't have enough. What do we want to export if we don't have enough? The next policy I'll be looking at after production now. The next policy I'll be looking at is when the people are exporting, what I discovered by a number of countries is that they have protection. Have you ever wondered why Ukraine is at war? People are exporting to Ukraine. Israel is at war. People are exporting to Israel. Countries are at war. People are shipping to those countries. Countries are having political, economic issues. People are shipping to those countries. Why? Their government give them safety net and protection. When government have a policy to protect exporters can take more risk. Not useless risk, not uncalculated risk, calculated risk. But they know if this crystallize, there is a safety net. I'll be talking about those safety net on that policy. So there must be a deliberate policy on protecting the sector, protecting the business. And interesting thing, we've done something similar in We've done something similar in Agric called NISA. Protection. What is the protective mechanism that the government has put in place to be able to support and grow non-oil export? Policy on protecting export. And lastly, policy on partners around the world. We need partners around the world. Policy on partners. The policy on partner basically is talking about having, if I want to ship to Germany, there should be someone I can call and say, look, I want to go into Germany. This is the product I'm looking at exporting. I need that I can talk to. I might pay for the service, but government have agreed with them. Maybe government subsidize it. And I'm talking about all this. I want to talk about policy on partners, but we need partners around the world. So I will go through this policy in summary. So if Nigeria and any nation in particular is going to grow its export, it needs policy in 10 different areas. 10 different areas. Number one, policy on preparing new businesses for export. Policy on preparation. This helps to grow the volume of the number of exporters, which consequently grow the volume. Policy on promotion and export promotion policy. We must create an export promotion policy. Policy on processing. We must create an export process policy. A policy that streamlines the export process. There must be policy to drive the process and make it more efficient, to increase the speed of processing. This grows the number of exporters, this grows the number of demand for our products, this grows the speed of exporting. This policy on paperwork, also increase the speed and reduce delay. Policy on export documentation from Nigeria. There must be another delivery policy on purchasing power in terms of funding to be able to grow the export volume. There must be delivery policy on proficiency, continuous increase, improvement, growing the capacity of exporters in Nigeria. There must be a policy on pricing to drive down the cost of export and make Nigerian export more competitive. There must be a policy on production, growing production volume in Nigeria. There must be a deliberate policy on protection, protecting exporters, making the sector attractive for people to want to come and do business. Protection. And there must be a deliberate policy on partners that we're going to work with in different markets around the world to be able to grow our export volume. So I'll be spending 10 sessions handling each of these one by one in subsequent videos. This might be sometimes, maybe next year, but it's just to give a hint on anybody that is position of authority to be able to help, because Nigeria is in a dire situation. I mean, dollar is at 1.7 going to 1.8. People are predicted even going beyond 2,000, and the reason is basically because we are not generating enough FX. How do we generate enough FX? By exporting. Now, how do you generate enough FX? People focus a lot on foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment, remittances, which are good source of FX. The only challenge is that you don't have control over them. Someone decide they want to invest or send money to Nigeria. But trading goods and trading services is a more viable, more sustainable, and more effort-driven demand for, generation of effort. Meaning, we will decide, not someone decided for us. We will decide. And in the focus in this conversation is basically focused on the non-oil export. So we definitely need to grow non-oil export. The question is, what kind of policy is the government of Nigeria pursuing in order to grow non-oil export? A big challenge, I must say. And a lot of work for the Minister of Trade, a lot of work for the MD, CEO of Nexim, a lot of work for the CBN governor, Director of Trade, and of course a lot of work for the NPC CEO, and of course the Minister of Trade. See you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye for now.